Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue 155, and it's Beast Boy. First off, apologies for no new episode last week. As I'd indicated on social media, unfortunately, Doc and I just couldn't get together in time, and he was busy with work, and I was dealing with stuff at home and building things and prepping for the baby, and it kind of got away from us, so apologies. Also related to that this is sort of the season finale. Next week is going to be the Mental Health Avengers, which is the collaborative episode, but there isn't going to be a new solo Capes on the Couch episode for an indeterminate amount of time, not to exceed, we'll say maybe 8 to 12 weeks, 2 to 3 months tops. Just again, because as I said, it's going to be a lot with a second kid, and I don't know how that's all going to play out. So I don't want to make any promises, and I would rather under promise and over deliver. So that's kind of where we are with all of that. So we'll get into all of the thank yous and such at the end. But it's kind of appropriate that we're doing this episode in the wake of the passing of an absolute legend, George Perez. Just the man was so iconic and so impactful in his artwork and in his creations. And I mean, we just got over Neil Adams. And I mean, at least for me, from a comics and an artistic standpoint, I didn't even really have a chance to process Neil's passing because George was right after that. And we lost two titans, if you'll pardon the pun a bit, in a very, very brief time span. And so many thoughts and prayers go out to his family and his friends and his loved ones and those who had an opportunity to work with him.
Yeah, this one really hurt. If you're a longtime fan of comics, you know how much he meant to this industry.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just everything that he gave, everything that he meant, the characters that he worked on, some of the iconic looks that he gave characters. I mean, his Wanda Maximoff, and we just did Wanda with the incredibly detailed curly hair. That is a Perez identifier. If she's drawn with lots of tight curls that are very clearly defined, he's the one who did that. And that's kind of one of his trademarks. And then the JLA Avengers crossover that I would have killed for. And I'm so disappointed that I missed out when they announced that they were reprinting it with the proceeds going to pay for some of his health care, which is a whole other thing I'm not going to get into. But that reprint, it's a damn good story. It's such an amazing story. And that picture of Superman standing there with Mjolnir and Captain America's shield is just like, that was Endgame long before Endgame. That was crossover and bringing all the characters together. And that was just a moment in comics, that story, a legend, and he will be missed. So we're doing a character that he didn't create, but he certainly had a major role in reinventing and reestablishing within the DC universe. Beast Boy, Garfield Mark Logan, was created by Arnold Drake and Bob Brown in the Doom Patrol number 99, November 1965. In doing my research for this, first off, didn't realize he was that old, and didn't realize he is just as linked, or almost as much linked with the Doom Patrol as he is with the Teen Titans, because for me, Beast Boy is a Titans character, both in the comics and because of the various animated series. So I do tend to identify Beast Boy as linked with the Teen Titans, but he's got enough play with the Doom Patrol that he was a longtime member over there as well. So Garfield Logan was living with his parents in Africa when he contracted an illness that was lethal to every species except the West African green monkey. So his scientist parents attempted to turn him into a monkey just for 24 hours to let the disease run its course. But the experiment gave him the ability to transform into any animal, with the caveat that he would retain green pigment, skin, or fur, because, that's how science works in the world of comics. So his parents die and he's court appointed to a villain who wants to use his powers, but he's rescued by the Doom Patrol and he joins their ranks for a time. He later joins Titans West and then the new Teen Titans, and he renames himself as Changeling. So as a member of the Titans, he had a relationship with Terra, which ended when she revealed that she was working for Deathstroke as part of the Judas contract. And you can go back and listen to our Terra episode to get more on that, as Ariel has been working her way through the various Titans characters. After Donna Troy's death, we also did, he forms a new Teen Titans team with Cyborg, who we also did, and Starfire, who we also did. There's a pattern here. But the team is beaten by Superboy-Prime, who we also covered. He begins a relationship with Raven, who we have not covered, but I'm fairly certain Ariel's going to include on the short list because we've gone through the overwhelming majority of the Titans. Raven is pretty much the last big name from that team that she hasn't picked yet. So
yay,
we will be getting to her soon enough. So he begins a relationship with Raven, but after they break up, he leaves the team and rejoins the Doom Patrol. So he's reintroduced in the New 52 as a member of the Ravagers, not to be confused with the James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy Marvel Cinematic Universe team. But this time he has red fur instead of his usual green due to a connection to an extra-dimensional power source called the Red. So in this iteration, he's in a relationship with Terra once again, but after a battle with Deathstroke leaves him near death, he's rescued by Raven, who then mind controls him into a war against her father.
Because comics.
And then in Rebirth, he once again joins the Titans and he is again in a relationship with Raven. So Ariel doesn't often come to us with questions, but she managed to type enough with her broken finger to get back to me with 2 questions. And so the first one, as we delve into the issues, is where does his obsessive wisecracking come from? Because Beast Boy is definitely written oftentimes as the team's comic relief. And it's to the point that it's almost overbearing how much he quips. He's basically a Joss Whedon character amped up to 11. And Ariel just wants to know why. Where does that all come from?
So I'm going to equate this with something that most people, at least in the US, in our culture, will understand this reference: being a class clown. The idea is that at some level, you recognize that you're going to get certain responses if you're funny. And the idea is not that people are laughing because they get enjoyment from you. It's that you allow for the distraction of people laughing so that you don't have to experience any other emotion around you. That's the part that sometimes gets lost in this. It's not just whether or not you want attention. It's that you want an environment. You want a certain feel for what's going on. And nobody is crying if they're laughing, or unless it's so funny that they're experiencing tears, and you can easily tell the difference. The problem with that, of course, is it doesn't allow for any other emotions to show. And comedians in general do this very well. You can take things that are incredibly painful and process them through humor. I'm not saying that's necessarily a negative thing. But when do you shut it down? That is something that becomes a problem because it's almost intoxicating the way these responses can overwhelm your senses. If you're getting positive feedback or just feedback, heaven forbid you're in a situation where you're used to getting no attention and this is the only way that people will acknowledge you. Well, we'll get into that as a different issue. But the point being, you notice that the world is more tolerable that way. You know that you have this go-to and you can use it every single time. You don't get evidence that there's any other way to process situations. And therefore, you don't have to develop other skills related to those situations. So you do become a master of a trade, but it's clearly at the expense of many others. And as you pointed out, the entire thing can become so overbearing that people get pushed away. They get tired of the act. They get tired of someone constantly doing this. Not everyone, but a fair amount of people have that response. And yet that still doesn't shut down the defense mechanism. Why? Because the person is driving away people ahead of when they can actually lead to potential pain and suffering. So it's a preemptive strike. Either I'm distracting you enough that you don't have to put anything heavy on me, or even if there is something heavy going on or something is serious about the situation, you are already removing me from the equation because you think I won't be able to take it seriously, or I'm not dealing with it the way you want me to. So in that very perverse way, it's win-win. But what I'm trying to get at here is that this is all from one person, that person that's doing it's point of view, as opposed to the idea that they recognize there's other ways and they're missing out on a lot potentially when it comes to the full range of emotions in life. Not that they're not experiencing them, but they're not willing to engage with anyone else about it. And that's the part that can be so painful.
Yeah, and you indicated that we're going to discuss it in another one of the issues, but it's very obvious that it's a facade that is just basically used to hide his inner pain from the losses, plural, that he suffered in life. I mean, we all know somebody like that, somebody who's gone through so much. You had indicated the notion of the class clown, the kind of person who says, I've been through a lot, but I'm going to crack jokes because if I'm not laughing, I'm going to cry. And I would rather laugh than cry. So I'm just going to make a joke about everything. The problem comes, as you said, when you make a joke about everything, then it stagnates your emotional reception to anything. And you no longer have the ability to appropriately emote over things. Just from an entertainment trope perspective, I think it's always very impactful when we do see the comic relief character, the person who's always joking. I was going to say the guy who's always joking, because let's be real here, statistically, it's almost always a guy, but the character who's always joking, and they finally have a moment either that breaks them or where they let the guard down and they let the emotions come forth. And again, from an entertainment and storytelling perspective, that is always such a powerful thing. But if we relate that to real life, it can be incredibly powerful to feel, to allow yourself to emote and to express something other than just that knee-jerk response of, whatever you said, I'm going to make a joke about it. We all like people who make us laugh, but we need the people around us who can make us think and make us cry for positive reasons. I'm not saying, the people that should be harassing you and haranguing you and make you cry at tears of sadness, but the people that can bring those emotions out of you, those are people worth keeping around. Speaking of people worth keeping around, we're going to segue into the second issue. And Ariel just said, explain his relationship with Raven, because she really just flat out doesn't get it. Ariel is absolutely one of those people that has very clear-cut ideas of who characters are. And that's one of the reasons why we love her. And that's one of the reasons that makes her such a fantastic reviewer and writer, is she has very clear ideas about who these characters are, especially if your name is Talia. But I guess for her view of who Beast Boy is, she's like, I don't understand why he's with Raven. Maybe you have some insight into that. I know you're a bigger DC/Titans guy than I am.
It's a fascinating topic only because I think you can insert that idea with many relationships. I'm pretty sure we all know that couple where you just say, how on earth are they together? And my honest answer is, oh, that's not meant to be flippant. What I mean is, it's really not our place to ever determine why people get into relationships with one another, but it is worth diving into for the sake of ourselves so that we can understand it better and potentially understand our own relationships better. So yes, I am going to make it a little bit selfish for all of us. I mean, for everyone's sake. I know in previous episodes I've mentioned the idea that opposites attract. Just the novelty of something so simple as I have never seen, heard, or observed different traits or qualities about a person. And for whatever reason, that initial impression is positive to me. And even if it's not totally on point, I like to think that it's something that allows a person to experiment, try something new, try something different. We don't like routine to the point that it's just rote and with zero excitement in life. And the idea that someone else can introduce it to you and you may have common experiences, even if you don't have common opinions or don't have common tastes or don't have other common experiences that you would think would lead to a lasting relationship. So an example of that would be you meet someone in a job. So the job is the only thing you have in common. That's how you met. And you don't like the same foods. You don't like the same movies, but you like the je ne sais quoi. You like the energy that the person brings to whatever it is that they're discussing. Mainly because, let's say, if we're going with the whole opposites attract thing, you envy a part of the person and what they're bringing to the table. You simply say, this is something that secretly, subconsciously, I wish that I wanted to do, or I wish I were interested more, or I just never knew about it. But now that I know about it, maybe it's a little late in life for me to get this interested in it. But I know someone else who is now, and they're willing to share that time with me. They're willing to talk about it. They're willing to pull me into their world. So the idea that our brains and our emotions love stimulation from new things that just simply weren't on the radar, I can see it. I can see it. And if the person that's involved has a similar reciprocity. Sorry, I don't know which word to use, but that doesn't matter. As long as they're matching in that effort and energy, then really it can last indefinitely. You don't have to have someone that comes up with something new each time they see each other. I want to make that clear. It's not a matter of, in contradiction to what we were talking about before, it's not that you're trying to constantly put on a new act for the person. It's actually the idea that things are so wide apart that as you develop this organic commonality, even if there's so many things that are different, the fact that things can start to blend and you sometimes come up with nuances that you wouldn't have in your own life. So to go with the stereotype, and yes, I'm going to use the cartoon more than the comic. If you have someone that is considered very stoic and gray, and you have this other person that's incredibly colorful and out there and blaring, you can end up with some really unique mixes when they come together. And the combination of those two can be greater than just each of them apart.
Interesting. I like the notion that they they're so far apart that the relationship is literally them coming together. I like that idea over just using that one shared experience, that one shared commonality as the starting point. I think that's a very powerful thing, because if you really think about it, that's how, I hate to bring it to something kind of so specific, but that's how a lot of college friendships and a college relationship start. Your only experience, the only commonality that you have with these people is the fact that you are thrust together in this confined space of a dormitory, whether it's the room or the hall or the building, whatever you call it, your freshman year of college, when you're swimming just to keep your head above water, metaphorically speaking, and you form incredibly tight bonds with people very, very quickly that you would, I don't want to say never, but rarely interact with, were you not all thrown together into this pressure cooker, essentially, and forced to survive. You're forced to get along. You're forced to survive with each other because you're all going to school and you don't have a choice. And you have so many other things on your plate mentally, whether it's your own well-being, whether it's your class load, whether it's extracurricular activities, whatever the case may be, that you don't have time to sit and parse over, well, I don't really want to be friends with this person because of XYZ, or this person's okay, but I'm not going to get super close with them because I disagree with them about whatever. It's okay. You and me, we have like 2 classes together and we live down the hall from each other. Cool. You and I are going to be close now because we're going through this hellhole together. We're going through this hellish experience. And I'm not trying to say that all college is a hellish experience, but those first couple of weeks of freshman year, your head is on a swivel. That's how it is. I made a comment and we had a discussion one point during freshman year. I recall this discussion that I forget the accelerator, the number that we used, but basically like however many, like 3 months of a friendship in freshman year of college equates to like a year or 2 years, whatever it was, of a friendship outside of that, because you are with these people so often that you form these incredibly tight bonds under, again, accelerated circumstances. And I'm mentioning college, by the way, because this is something that I have personal experience with. I'm certain it is very similar for people who are engaged in athletics and sports teams and things of that nature. I wasn't on any sports teams unless you want to count like intramural floor hockey. But I'm sure if you were on like a high school team or a college team or something along those lines, or just playing a sport like that, it's a very similar concept. So I'm bringing it to what I know, but I'm sure it's applicable elsewhere. But this idea that it's essentially an incubator and an accelerated growth pattern for relationships. And that's what the Titans are. They are formed together. Yes, they get along with each other and they work together to save the world and they live together and things of that nature. In essence, it's kind of like that with the added stress of saving the world. So when you factor in all of that, I wouldn't say, to your point, that it's 100% surprising that Beast Boy would end up with somebody like Raven, because I'm a single dude, you're a single gal. Let's see how this works out. I mean, well, more so me than you. I was going to say, I know what that's like being a single dude in college. You were pretty much already set by the time you started. So you really can't empathize with me there.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I know. Aw, shucks. I met my soulmate in senior year of high school. Yeah, it's a real drag.
Well, actually, it is relevant because it goes to the point, and maybe this is oversharing, but I feel like that's any podcast when you really get down to it. I pictured my life being single for a long time before that point. And so I didn't even think I was going to have that deep a relationship for much of my adult life. So the fact that it happened early is great. I don't have an issue with it. But in that sense, like, okay, the reason it happened was because of some significant differences that allowed for organic growth. So, hey, that's the closest I can say to relating to it. I'm not going to pretend in terms of other relationships and how that shapes me in the future. I can't speak to that personally, but I've certainly had enough people that have gone through that experience in my life that I've certainly seen it from so many different perspectives, and I can appreciate it.
All right, that's fair. So the third and final issue is one that we said we're going to sort of revisit a bit, and it's this inferiority complex. And that's one of the things that feeds the facade of the wisecracking, is this notion that he's not the strongest member of the team. He's not the most powerful member of the team. That it very much comes from a place of, yeah, I'm here and I can turn into an animal, but what else really can I do? Because, Cyborg has the tech stuff, Raven has the magic, Starfire has the power, Dick is, the tactical guy. So a lot of what Beast Boy is feeling is this notion of, I constantly have to front and fake it until I make it. And I'm certain that when we get into this discussion, that there is a not insignificant portion of our audience who's going to be going, I feel personally seen.
So what happens when you have one specific trait that you know about and is expected of you from others, and it's acknowledged that it's a very prominent trait? Whatever it is, it can be a skill, it can be your intelligence, it can be a commonality of what you've done in the past. If you have a trade, for example, everybody needs a plumber or electrician, so you're the plumber guy. Okay, great. Well, what are you going to do? Every time somebody you meet brings up a situation, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a plumber. Okay. And then you talk shop. You talk about your worst nightmare of floods that you had to deal with that you had to fix. You go into war stories of how difficult the trade is on your back and how it's making your life even more stressful, but you're glad you make the money. And then you go into how you were an apprentice before and all this. And at some point you're wearing people down to the point of saying like, oh, okay, I got it. You're a plumber. I was just asking what you did. I didn't need everything else and all the intricacies. I guess you really love plumbing. Meanwhile, the person is thinking more like, wow, I better stick to plumbing because anything else I talk about, this person is probably more knowledgeable than me, or they're going to talk about something I don't know about, and I'm not going to really be able to carry a conversation about that. So I got to make sure I stay in my lane. I'm using that as like a very rudimentary example, but it can be your personality too if there's a particular trait. Obviously, with Beast Boy, we're talking about the humor, the wisecracking, and all of that. It's okay. I'm going to stick just with that, because that's the thing that not only am I good at, that's what everybody knows, and I get the response. But holy cow, if they ask me to lead this team, I don't know what's going to happen then. Or, I actually have to do something just a little different and learn something different. Who knows? It's the fear that often drives this. It's the fact that you're worried that somehow the inputs that are not expected of you are going to indicate somehow that you're less of a person. Now, mind you, that is irrational. That is not accurate whatsoever. The first time you do something, and I'm not saying this insultingly, I'm just saying it as an observation for myself, you're probably gonna suck a bit at it. It's not the idea that you are instantly an expert in everything you do. You may have natural tendencies and natural traits that may allow things to start easier than other people, and it may carry you farther than some other people in whatever that particular pattern or event or work life or relationship or whatever. It may carry you farther because you have some sort of ability that people recognize or that you recognize for yourself. That's great. That doesn't mean it has to stop there. That doesn't mean that because something is difficult that you are now inferior to everybody else that is continuing to do that. Heaven forbid somebody actually does something that quote unquote is better than you. That doesn't mean that you are worse. I know that sounds like a very trite thing to say, but I mean that in the sense that your sense of value, your sense of self-worth is not tied to your ability to do something, or at least hopefully it's not. If you have created that structure for yourself, then think about what you just connected. You basically said, as long as I can do X, that means my emotions are Y. And once you make that connection, that means that just about anything in the universe could potentially break that. And therefore, if your ability to do X or your ability to be X goes away, that in theory means that you are automatically disconnecting your emotions about Y. In other words, you are potentially saying, I am setting myself up for an instant poor emotional response if I am not in my lane. Meanwhile, an opportunity for growth and an opportunity to experience a better life is to say, although I have this particular lane that I'm in, I can see opportunities to expand my comfort level beyond what I currently am experiencing. And yes, there's going to be discomfort outside of your lane for a certain amount of time. It's not going to be perfect. And I'm not saying that you have to cast such a wide net that you start dispersing your own sense of self and creating more emotional turmoil or just an amount of stress that you're not going to handle well. But you can veer just a little bit left and right outside of that lane so that your comfort zone expands more and more. And by the time you get to an age where maybe physically you aren't doing as much as you used to, or heaven forbid, maybe your cognition is changing. I'm not even saying losing it, but just you notice that you're developing what we call more of a crystallized memory, which really can be a great thing, as opposed to the, more functional memory and processing memory for speed that we have when we're younger. You still have a wonderful experience because of the breadth you created. I'm saying breadth, I apologize, rather than just this single, very focused, minuscule lane that's so deep that you put yourself in a tunnel that you can't get out.
Incredibly well stated. And I think that is something that we tend to lose sight of, especially now in the age of social media, as we see so many people posting about all these things that they're doing or they're trying and they're succeeding because we want to promote our successes. That's natural. That's human nature. And social media, for all of its many, many flaws and problems, has all given us an opportunity to do that. But as we've said before on this show, when you start comparing your full scope behind the scenes, warts and all images and life to the highlight reel that other people are sharing, it's going to fall flat. It just is. You watch the highlights from any sporting event, you see the goals, you see the major plays, you see the points scored. You don't see the errors. You don't see the general play. I'm a hockey guy. You watch hockey highlights, it could be, 3.5 minutes long. You're going to see the goals. You're going to see a couple of, nice saves. You maybe see a fight or two. You're not going to see the teams setting up the power play. You're not going to see all the stuff going on in the neutral zone. You don't see that stuff because it's not part of the highlight reel, but it's just as valid a part of the game.
Yeah, I'll go even further. You also don't see the cone drills that are done for skating. You don't see the passing drills. You don't see the film study. You don't see the
sessions in the weight room.
Right.
You don't see the practices. Practice. We talk about practice. You don't see that stuff. AI, for all of his whatever he was, like, come on, man. Like, you don't practice, you ain't going to make it. So that's the part that gets hidden. And so back to my point, we have a tendency to key in on the goals that were scored. We don't often see, unless we're present or very close with the person, we don't see what they did and the route that they took to get there. We all do this from time. We blow smoke up our own asses. We blow smoke up the asses of those around us to help us feel better, because sometimes you just need a little push. Sometimes your own internal motivation falters. Some of us more than others. But, you do your best to try and help give a little assistance where you can. And in turn, you accept that assistance when it's provided to you. And I think I had said before on another episode, we over romanticize and we over idealize these lifestyles. And they think that, oh, if it's not this ideal thing, that everything in my life should be, I should love every minute of it and I should be focused on it. You're not going to. You're just not. You won't. That's an unrealistic expectation. Get that out of your brain right now and live in the moment, live in the mediocre, dwell in it, and accept it as a part of your life. Now, if it starts to become overwhelming, that's something you can revisit. But don't think that because you're going through a mediocre stretch that, oh my God, my life is always going to be like this and I need to lie about the successes that I'm having. Embrace it and sit with those feelings and say, okay, if I'm feeling this way, if I'm feeling a certain way about this, why? Is it externally motivated or is it internally motivated? Is it a situation where I feel I need to make a change so I can compete with this person, that person, or whatever external goal I've set? Or is it a situation where what I'm doing isn't making me happy? Because those are two wildly different motivators. And you need to be mindful of that. And just remember, and I've said this before, I mean, it especially applies to things like fitness and exercise and stuff, but it applies to your general life. The only person you need to compete with is who you were yesterday. That's it. That's it. Just strive to be a better version of the person you were yesterday, last week, last month, last year, and go from there. So if we can all collectively do that, I think the notions of inferiority complex are going to drastically reduce, because you're going to say, yeah, I'm not as jacked as this person. I'm not as smart as that person, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I'm still a better version of me than I was last year, 5 years ago, whatever the case may be. And so if we can all do that, that's your homework assignment, is just strip away those comparisons to everybody else. Focus on you. That's your assignment for while we are on hiatus. That's my thing. I'm making it up now. I'm just coining it. That is your homework assignment over the next couple months. And when we come back in 8 to 12 weeks, whatever the case may be, I will make a note to say, by the way, in the Beast Boy episode, I said, don't compare yourself to anybody else. Compare yourself to, the version of you from a couple months ago. I'll say a couple months ago, because day to day can fluctuate a little more wildly. But you want to look at a trend. So when we come back from hiatus with the Sue Storm episode or whomever, I'll say, how was your summer? And what did you do? This is basically going to be like a summer break. So that's my homework assignment. I'm just coming up with this now off the top of my head. So with that, we're going to take a short break, plug BetterHelp and some of our friends. And when we get back, we'll get into treatment. Stay tuned.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? BetterHelp will assess your individual needs and match you with a licensed professional therapist. You can begin communicating within 48 hours.
It isn't a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional counseling done securely online. BetterHelp has a network of over 15,000 counselors with a broad range of expertise. You can log in and message your counselor anytime and get timely and thoughtful responses. You can also schedule regular video or phone sessions. No waiting room required.
BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if you feel you don't have a good connection. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial help is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/capes, that's better HELP, and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional.
Special offer for Capes on the Couch fans. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/capes.
Have you ever wondered what scotch will make your palate feel like it's just gone on a majestic journey through the Highlands? If LeBron will ever win another ring? Or if the Leafs will ever win another Stanley Cup?
Mike, if they tune in to Scotch and Sports, they're going to find all that out and more. They're going to find out what's souring our scotch, what our next scotch on the shelf is, and our On the Rocks segment, where we debate 2 topics. You just met Mike. I'm Gertie. We got suds coming up, and we may be drinking scotch, but our biased opinions don't change no matter how much we've had, and we have quite a bit. We'll even answer viewer questions, so send them in, and if you don't like the answer, well, we'll just have to have another scotch, and we can still all be friends.
We even talk a little, or a lot, of pop culture. Where else can you find hot takes on WandaVision, NFL analysis, and the fact that the Leafs will in fact win the Stanley Cup this year? Answer, Scotch and Sports.
Hi, I'm Howard Mackey, and this is Capes on the Couch.
And we're back. So treatment, the theme is evolution. Not entirely surprising for a character like Beast Boy, but for in-universe, let's start with that.
So this is one of those rare, well, not so rare times where I'm going to lean into the powers of a character. I want Beast Boy to demonstrate his ability to change, but I am going to put some guardrails. Specifically for each session, I want him to change into one animal, but it's not just randomized. I mean, he can pick the animal, but the point is, I want to know the emotion behind it. I want to know the event that he was thinking of as to why he would pick that particular beast. And we just hash it out. We talk about it. And I think there is a lot of meaning because anybody that's read any of Beast Boy interactions in Teen Titans or watched the cartoons or whatever, it always ties in because that's where a lot of the jokes come from. It's just natural. But here's the thing about humor, and I know I was kind of ragging on it when it becomes too much, but I genuinely think it's one of the best, if not the best, defense mechanisms you can have. It is inherently an intellectual way. It engages your brain in ways that many other coping mechanisms can't because it ties so incredibly close to emotion. And when you have something like that as your base, you really can dig deep. It doesn't seem that way because it's often used superficially, but as I've said so many times in the past, if you're going to be a smart aleck, you need to be smart first. So use that to your advantage. And I think we'd find some pretty deep, even psychodynamic opportunities by doing it that way.
I always like to say if someone calls me a smartass, I'd say I'd rather be a smartass than a dumbass. I mean, similar principle. Interesting take on Beast Boy. I like how you still wanted to work in the animals and the morphing and the changing because, I mean, if you have the opportunity, you might as well. And clearly, this isn't real anyway. So we're going to come up with what works for us. So out of universe, this one we spent a little time discussing before we started recording only because so much of Beast Boy's persona and character and issues are related to his powers. And so if you eliminate that, you're effectively kneecapping a lot of what he could in theory go through. Still dealing with the loss of the parents, still dealing with the court appointment, a lot of the issues and that he has with respects to the teammates can be related and extrapolated to the real world. But I'm curious how you're going to expound upon some of the things that we discussed, before we hit record.
All right. You said that we're now cut off at the knees because he's not able to change into other animals because now we're dealing with the real world. Or are we? Referring to the limitation. The idea that people are social chameleons, the idea that we are able to adapt how we are handling different scenarios with different people under different pressures, circumstances, stresses, grief, loss, celebrations, all of it. Some people do this incredibly well. Some people don't. And I mean that both from the external view of what other people see of what the person is putting out there in the world and what that particular person is experiencing internally with their thoughts, emotions, and actions. There can be huge disconnects with those sorts of things. You don't need to actually be able to morph into different animals to get this. So a great example of that is if you are someone who is able to socialize with a lot of different groups of people, if you have ever been complimented on your ability to do it, if you are entertaining or engaging in a way that people actually want to form relationships with you, and you notice that it's with a lot of people, then you have a great opportunity. But it also can be a bit of a burden in the sense that, especially if you're extroverted, you're always on. And yes, you get energy from the interactions, but then in theory, you're always trying to present your best self. And if you have to do that to the point that you are starting to lose what it is that you want for yourself because you feel like now you've created an obligation for all those people that you've been interacting with, that can be pretty daunting, and it can have its own emotional set of consequences. And some people are probably saying, well, Dr. Issues, thank you so much for keying in on that particular part of the audience. And I'm glad that that has nothing to do with me as an introvert. Au contraire, there is this huge misconception that someone who prefers to draw their energy from being alone as not being able to have highly sociable, engaging, and rewarding interactions with people. That's a misnomer. And the fact that that is something that people can still recognize, and in the moment that those interactions are happening, let's remember, this is a wide spectrum. You can actually be an incredibly extroverted introvert. You can have introverted traits of being an extrovert. How those things blend, in addition to being knowledgeable about lots of different categories of topics, knowing people's backgrounds, demonstrating empathy, having patience with difficult circumstances, all of these other what we call soft skills. I haven't used that term in a long time, but those types of things, which now more than ever are getting the credence that they should have in the first place when it comes to how we're dealing with each other in a society. Those are not exclusive to one particular interactive style over another. It's just that we often stereotype so much that we feel like we have to fit perfectly into these boxes. And the more that you notice with your interactions, you blend them together. You have to find out, for example, if we're talking about a person that knows that they're able to do this, what are they bringing that is the problem? If it's, I notice I'm doing this and it's fun and I'm the life of the party and it's a great thing, but I feel like afterwards I have to like nap for the next 3 days. Okay, maybe you're overdoing it in terms of the amount, and it's purely a matter of setting up a schedule that's going to work for you. And if you say, well, it happens in the first 5 minutes, okay, then actually we do need to, do some desensitization, and you're going to have to learn how to do more. Okay. That's going to be a tough road, but it can work. Or it's the opposite where it's like, okay, I'm always doing this, but my goodness, I really want to get it down to a core group of people that I care about, and I know they care about me, and I want to dedicate as much time as I can to them without just automatically sacrificing it to the rest of the world because it seems like that's what they want. All right, then I guess we're going to do much more interpersonal and try and bring it to just, to your family or to your friends that, you feel like you want to focus on, and carve out that time for yourself. And you're going to have to learn how to delegate. So there's lots of different opportunities for something like this. So if anybody has ever felt this way, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's a great thing. Acknowledge it for what it is instead of hiding from it. And take the advice of the teacher that said, you actually have a skill. Please develop it and don't let it be thrown away. When someone says that to you in high school and you want to just crawl into a hole because you didn't want them to actually put that on your paper and say that you're good. Not that I'm acknowledging that for myself right now after all these years.
Yep. I think that advice at the end there goes, just in general, don't hide from who you are. If you want to make a change, if there's something about you that you don't like, then go for it. But don't run away. Don't hide from who you are in an effort to try and please someone else or what you think is going to make someone else happy. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. You have to look in the mirror and be comfortable with what you see. And I was actually just having this conversation with my mother today. We were talking about facades and insecurity and things of that nature. And why there are people out there who will continue to act in a way that is blatantly fake. Obviously, there's no sincerity behind it whatsoever. And she could not grasp the notion of why someone would do that. And I said, frankly, Mom, it's because they're insecure. And so they have cloaked themselves in a bubble of delusion that if they just keep this up, then the happy lie is better than the harsh truth. And yeah, the truth is going to suck and it's going to hurt. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but it's more substantial than the facade. And so if we can all just be more real with ourselves, then we can start being more real with each other. But unless and until that happens, we're just going to keep spinning in circles. Now, with all of that being said, I'm going to do my best/worst Greg Sipes impression and see what happens when we get Beast Boy on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Garfield. I'm Dr. Issues.
Now, please, call me Beast Boy. But oh, man, if you catch my drift.
That's incredibly awkward. You don't have to prove anything to me.
That's right, I don't. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to go take off.
Wait. We haven't even started yet.
But I proved my point. I can do my own thing and get whatever I want when I want. I don't need a doctor to tell me how to feel.
Good, because I don't do that.
All right, then.
So, are you going to actually answer anything I say with a real answer and not just find a way to shrug it off?
Maybe. How much?
My typical fee is...
No, I mean, how much do you pay me to put up with you being boring?
You don't even know me.
Well, you went to a lot of school, right?
Yes, but...
And you think you're pretty smart, right?
I don't brag.
Well, I bet to have an office like this, you have to have a lot of money coming your way, too.
That is none of your...
But am I wrong?
I can't remember the last time somebody tried to boil my essence down to bare bones stereotypes without a single hint of who I truly am. All right, let's try this the other way. You're a living being, right?
Yeah.
You're a superhero, correct?
Sure.
You're incredibly desperate for attention, obviously.
I wouldn't say...
And you're probably single, I take it.
Hey, now, wait a minute. That's not fair.
Hey, plus, you got weird ears.
That's a low blow, man.
I don't even know what's up with your voice.
Stop.
I'm just matching tit for tat.
No. You're just trying to be a bully.
And like you said, was I wrong? What's the difference between what you did and what I did?
I was trying to pump you up so you'd leave me alone. Instead, you make it sound like I was making fun of you. There's a huge difference. If you can't see that, then I don't think we should talk anymore.
What if I told you that I failed at mimicking your style because it's unique? Does it sound more like a compliment? Plus, I enjoy being weird.
But that doesn't excuse busting my chops about being lonely sometimes.
I said you're looking for attention. I didn't say you were lonely.
I don't get it.
You sound like the life of the party. Do you have friends?
Of course.
Do you have an intimate relationship?
Whoa. I don't go around telling bedtime stories. Let's just say my name suits me.
Oh, brother. So anyway, you have friends and close relationships, but you still said I cracked wise about being lonely. That doesn't match up. How can you think that way even when you put so much energy into getting people to like you?
Well, they like me because I'm entertaining. That's no revelation there.
I'm talking about from your side, though. Something is in your shtick that wants to be on all the time. That usually means that the person's hiding pain or sadness. Which is it?
I guess both.
How long can you keep up that act?
It's not an act, all right. I really am this awesome.
Asking a different way. How long do you stay in your basic form without turning into something else?
I don't know. I don't do it unless there's a reason to.
So why do you do it with personal interactions?
You're really going to push this as a thing, aren't you?
It's what I do.
Okay, here it goes.
Whoa, what are you doing?
Hold on. Almost.
My office can't fit.
I guess we'll have to address things my way.
You didn't have to become the elephant in the room.
I figured we could stop using metaphors.
I can't even write my notes down.
I guess you'll just have to use your memory.
You are not permitted to use any more elephant jokes.
Okay, how about this then?
Same premise, a gorilla. How droll. Let me guess, you weigh 800 pounds.
No, just 790. I had to get a little weight off my shoulders.
I swear you're going to drive me bananas. Quit monkeying around and we can actually get somewhere.
No need to go ape over this.
You are beyond annoying now. Please stop.
But you're playing into the puns yourself.
It's a reflex and it's gotten me into some trouble. Okay. If you relax for a moment, I'll let you in on a secret. Humor is my main defense mechanism because the world is a tough place, and I don't know if I would survive without levity. I play into jokes more than any psychiatrist I know because it's my comfort zone, but sometimes I really go too far, and a lot of times I make those that love me really pissed off because it took a while, but I had to learn to stop and hear them without preloading my retort. So I'm leveling with you. From a professional stranger, pump the brakes once in a while so you can appreciate the sadder things in life more. Cry, ponder just for a little bit. Otherwise, you'll notice that others are experiencing things on a deeper level and you'll always miss out.
Dude, you really are a nerd.
Thank you. Now, can you just be Beast Boy?
Call me Gar.
Okay, then. Yo, for real, those puns were on point, though.
I knew it.
Don't let it go to your head. Willing to talk again?
Sure, whatever. But you're not, trying to make me cry or something, right?
My old motto used to be, if you ain't crying, I ain't trying.
I'm glad you didn't use a bummer like that. See you around. Well, I'll say this. I don't think Greg Sipes is going to have to worry about losing his job anytime soon to me. That was the best effort. It's a very specific timbre of voice, the scratchiness, the pitch. It was a lot. I did my best. If you didn't think it was good, then go listen to the Tally episode and then come back and go, well, you know what? Actually, that wasn't that bad.
That's the old saying, right? Comparison is a thief of joy, except in this case, it actually brings a little more.
Yeah, exactly. So recommended reading for this is going to be the new Teen Titans run, the Wolfman and Perez run. Again, rest in peace to George Perez, the legend that he was. You want to go read those new Teen Titans stories from the early 80s, early to mid 80s. It were just, man, it was some good stories. So next week, I have to confirm with the team as of the recording date, but I believe next week is when we're going to release the Mental Health Avengers episode. But then that's it. But this episode is going to do it for Soul Capes on the Couch for quite some time. So thank you to everybody who's interacted with us, everybody who's posted about us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, @Capes on the Couch, everybody who's contacted us in our Discord server. We had a couple of new folks show up recently, and then thank you to everybody who's popped over there. We'll have links in the show notes for the Discord server. I'm going to try and remain active on social media to some extent while I'm dealing with the birth of a baby. But, I make no promises. And I make no promises as to when we're going to come back. I just promise that we will come back because we love doing this show and we are constantly, looking to change and improve and evolve, the theme of the episode. So, we will be doing that, and I'm sure we'll be doing that come season 8, whenever that kicks off again. And we'll have a whole batch of new characters to discuss, new guests, I'm sure, to meet up. And who knows, maybe we'll even do some TikTok stuff. We'll see. But that seems to be where the youths are these days, is on the TikTok. So mayhaps we'll go there. But thank you to everybody who's listened and who continues to listen to us. And like I said, if you haven't already listened to all the episodes, now's as good a time as any to go back and revisit some of the back catalog. So with all that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Doc.
First of all, just want to say thank you to everyone that continues to listen to us. You know, we greatly appreciate it. I just want to let you know, especially with a Beast Boy episode, don't sabotage yourself, you know, no matter what. I mean, he's had a lot of intergalactic adventures. And, you know, as long as you know what you want, then you'll eventually reach that brass monkey.
Ooh, nice. Recipes to MCA. So for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you for listening, and we will see you soon.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.